Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's the second day of June, Monday, June 2nd. Um, so this was sent to me about Joe Rogan. Well, first I want to say that I was talking about that video with that young woman who was talking about the internet and the effects of AI. One thing that she talked about was the ads. You know, I don't watch YouTubers and other truthers. It's not just truthers. She wasn't a truther, but it's, the YouTube's just running too many ads, and Google is as well. And people are turning off Google search for that reason, and YouTube, and going to other places because of the ads. And so I'm going to look at each individual video. I can set the ads, and I'm going to see if I'm going to look at it more carefully when I upload the video today. It's a pain in the ass to do that for each video. Usually they have default settings, but the default settings aren't for the ads anymore. I looked everywhere, and no, it's just per video. And either way, like I've had on my Gratefullness meditation channel, I do meditation videos, and it's kind of important that there's no ads because these aren't guided meditations. There's no talking. So I say, please begin, and then it goes for 30 minutes, and then that's all, and there's nothing in between. And so they run ads, it's a problem. So I had to get the channel monetized. Like I make about $4 a month. It's not like so I can monetize the other videos, and then demonetize the ones that are, not run ads on the ones that are meditation videos. And occasionally Google still runs ads. There's channels that are demonetized that Google run ads on, so they don't even really need a monetization program. The monetization program is to incentivize people, and it doesn't work anymore, right? And so, we'll see how it all plays out, but it's like Google's doing everything in their power, YouTube is, to go out of business and push people away. Like if you look at the way they handle their viewers and the way they handle their creators, they're pissing them both off, right? They're doing things that piss both sides off. And with all the ads they're running, they're not paying very much money per video. So some of the ads are long ads that you don't get paid for or whatever it is. And so it's almost to the point where I would demonetize my channel, but they'll still run ads anyway. And so anyway, so like that's the follow up. This is where everything is being done to get rid of. Like YouTube went from YouTube to then them too when they started pushing at CNN and other kinds, MSNBC and authoritative content, celebrity stuff. It went from the individuals that were you know what happened, and it was called Them Tube by me and other people. Like we came up with it spontaneously. Lots of people were like, it's turning into Them Tube, and not YouTube, and now it's turning into AI Tube. And so, with that being said, YouTube recommended this video with Joe Rogan, and I have mixed feelings about Joe Rogan and all these people, Tucker Carlson and people like that. Certainly, I was talking about this with Elon Musk, because they have had quality guests on. And, if my wife and I are going for a long drive, if we're going for a trip or, something like that, I might listen to an interview. Joe Rogan does good interviews. He has comedians on sometimes, which are funny or whatever, light. And then he has, semi almost like truther adjacent things. Tucker Carlson is an out-and-out shill for the CIA based in things people have said. I haven't done any research on that. But that's kind of the prevailing narrative. And, he was I showed you the stuff he said about 9/11. And, at this point, I feel like there is no change because people won't change. Individual people won't change. And so the people who are running who are prominent in the system, I mean, if they say anything that's more against the mainstream beastly system, if they're at least partially there. Yeah, I don't know how to. Yeah, like I'm not here to police the truth community. And with so many truthers not willing to say anything about the obvious fake Trump assassination attempt, what difference does anything make? When something that fake and so many people who claim to be truthers and really knew Trump and they were upset about Operation Warp Speed, and they still, they still wanted Trump to win or whatever it was. Like, it was just silly. It was like, there's no chance he's going to be a good president. I mean, voting, yeah, sure, you want to vote because you don't got anything better to do. You want to have a little bit of hopium, that's fine. But don't ignore something so obviously fake in WWE as the assassination attempt. And so what you've had is the truth community, which, at this point doesn't really have much value in changing the system. Like, there was some thought that in all of us, even if, I came into it believing the system, there's always one solution. The system has to collapse. I just believed that from the very beginning. When I started to learn about the system over the years, in 2007 when I started this channel, 2005, whatever it was, 2007 when I started this channel. And then, over time, it was about homesteading. It was like preparing for a backup plan. I had a website that was Plan B, a backup plan, just in case the system doesn't collapses. And it's something I believed as a very young person, as I grew up in the system in different ways. Like, I didn't, you can understand things without fully understanding them because of your age, right? Sometimes you have to mature into something. So I believed in this stuff. And then it's in the Sajmark system that there has to be a collapse to motivate people to change. If human beings don't embrace their higher nature, which I then learned is a thing, right? That human beings have a higher nature. Everyone has a potential saint inside them. Everyone has a potential spiritual person. And we can connect to the divinity within us. So as I did the Sajmark system and I understood that was a possibility, and then I started to improve as a person, like my consciousness changed and I just became, from a very low functioning person to somebody who was, moving towards the essence of my soul running the whole show, which is quite a difference in who you are as a person. The connection to divinity within you, even in the beginning initial stages, makes you quite different, right? It makes you, it just changes you at your whole consciousness level and elevates you in a way that can't be described. So when I had that experience, I'm like, wow, this could happen for everybody. And then I saw that, I was lucky in the way that everything, the dominoes fell for me to do that. Like, it's just everything worked out perfectly for me to do it. Who I was before, where I was when I, had the opportunity to embrace a spiritual path. And, it was just set up in a way where it's like I almost couldn't do it. Like, I almost had to do it. In fact, it feels like there had no other real choice. And so once I realized that I was kind of lucky in that sense, and that most people just won't even think about it. And it's something I've seen over and over again. So what's going to change? If people can do that but don't want to, if we all have the opportunity, and then people who do it end up like only going so far and then getting sucked back down to the materiality and just, they get corrupted by power. Even higher developed souls, people like Jesus and these other saints, had spiritual falls because it's just hard to embrace a spiritual path and continue on. And then materiality sets in and celebrity status or whatever, when people, I realized there had to be some kind of, as long as the system was the way it was, and it was a material-based system, there was just no chance of people embracing their higher nature. So, I understand all that, like something that's different than what the majority of people understand through my experience. And so if the system can't be saved, then what's the point of the truth community? Well, it's to prepare for something else. It's to embrace something else. Like it's to realize that there has to be, pockets of the future and some, I mean, that's the whole name of my channel, was this idea that the system was going to collapse at some point, and there needed to be pockets of future. Even if it was 100 years after I die, people have to start preparing for it. Like you can't start preparing for something like that when we're 100% dependent on the system, right? And so, I in terms of people's what they produce as content, it doesn't really matter so much, right? It's like, well, if there's people who are telling the truth to some extent, and then there's everything else, right? And there are people that enter into the truth community, often celebrities, that seem like, and this is what I was saying with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they seem like they embrace some of the truther narratives, and you think they're better than Joe Biden and I don't know, some the average Jen Psaki or somebody like that, right? They're better than the shills for the beast, the people who are just lying to you all the time about the beastly system. But in reality, they're Judas goats because they've embraced the truther narratives, but they're still working for the beast, and they're compromising you and bringing you down a path. Like Alex Jones is a primary example. Like Alex Jones definitely talks about truther stuff, but a lot of it's made up crap. Now it's a lot of right wing bullshit, QB stuff, and he's leading you down a path of like what Trump did with the January 6th people. It seemed like he was on their side, but he fucked them, right? He brought them up to the Capitol Hill and eventually pardoned these people, but he turned on them at first. Like he threw them under the bus and blamed them for, what was clearly a setup that he and they walked right into, right? So, it's all, like to think that people who just, say a little bit of truther things are truthers. And so Joe Rogan, who does have some legitimate points, and he did a good job on some of the things like COVID, is goofy about Trump, and so is Tucker Carlson, and they're both pushing this idea that this was some. It's not that they're just saying that the assassination attempt was real, which is so fucking fake. I mean, like I don't know how people could even look at it, and especially now, when time a week into it, they were caught up in the whole hype of it, right? And there are things that are definitely fake that he had Trump on, and Trump had no scar and no visual indication he had a cut on his wound, his ear was wounded, and he was bleeding because he didn't. His own doctor said the cut was less than 2 centimeters and didn't need stitches. And then he wore a big ass maxi pad bandage to the convention. Why are you wearing a bandage over your ear when there's a cut that you didn't? He went to the hospital for a cut that stopped bleeding as soon as he stood up because it wasn't real blood, right? The blood was all dry. The ketchup was all dry, Ketchupgate. And so it was so fucking fake. And everyone in the truth community should have been really suspicious just how fake it looked. And then he definitely wore a bandage he didn't need. Joe Rogan saw that for himself because there was no scar. And then a week after, he still had a bandage over it. Like this is, it's 8 days after the fucking thing, and he's on an interview in Fox, and he's still wearing a bandage. And he wore a bandage for 13 days. 13 days for something that was the blood dried the first day. He didn't need a bandage the first day. It was done, right? Because there was no cut, but like if it was a real thing, he would only need the bandage for no time at all because it's on your ear, which is a weird place for a bandage, and it wasn't bleeding. And if you don't have stitches, that means the cut's healed. Everyone has little cuts that we get. I may get these things regularly doing homesteading. You get a little cut, it bleeds, and even if it bleeds a lot, by the end of the day, it's like healed. If you don't need stitches, and I mean, very seldom, I don't even wear Band-Aids for, I get the thing to stop bleeding, and I'll put a Band-Aid on maybe to keep it clean for like one day, And this thing was, he didn't even need it for that, right? So we know he faked some of it. Like if you don't believe it's fake, you know that he maximized it with that fucking maxi pad to make sure everyone saw that his ear was, and then he pulled it off, and there's no damage. The ear was perfectly fine. Why are you wearing a fucking maxi pad, bro? And so, that was performative, and the whole fight thing. So Joe Rogan gets up and, so the beginning of this thing they're talking about, I don't know who his guest is, but he's the name of the video is Joe Rogan. Donald Trump's presidency is the elite's worst nightmare. The elite's worst nightmare. And I'm like, you don't know he's part of it? Like, fucking come on, bro. Like, this is just like, no matter what you do and what you pretend to be, if you are calling Donald Trump, elite's night, like the last worst nightmare, when he has just passed a massive tax cut bill for the elites, and everything he does is for the elites. The elites are the people Donald Trump loves and serves. It's the people Donald Trump loves to hang out with. It's a club that Donald Trump has belonged to for a long time, and wants to move up in. I mean, it's a club that is the only people that he cares about. He's a narcissist who, he wants the elites to praise him, and like he's not the elites like nice worst nightmare. What the fuck are you talking about? And so he says that all these other politicians are inauthentic, and the news people, this is part of his thing, but it's just a remedial take on truther stuff, like because he's the most popular podcaster, but I don't know why that is, right? Because his truther stuff is kind of garbage, and a lot of his takes are just out and out wrong, and it seems like he's being propped up in some way, as like they realize there's going to be people who are embracing the truther narrative, so they have to put Judas goats in there, right? So him and the guest are talking about how people want non-mainstream stuff and they want just authenticity. And you could say that Donald Trump is authentic, but he's an authentic grifter. His authenticity is about being a lying piece of shit grifter who is there to take advantage of his charisma and the desperation of these right-wing dopes who just want anybody to tell them what they want to hear and believe about the system, and that there's some deep state conspiracy rather than that the whole thing's fucked. There's a desperation that somehow what they thought America was in its best can be recreated. And he's working these people. He clearly doesn't believe any of the shit he's saying. And so he's authentic, but he's an authentic lying piece of shit, right? And so, and then he's like, he's a crazy person. And he's like, yeah, that's the only kind of person that would survive what you tried to do to him. And I'm like, how do you believe any of this stuff? So what did I say? When this was happening with Donald Trump's persecution. So Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. He got totally worked on fucking COVID. Like, so this is a guy who Joe Rogan is anti-vax, right? He took ivermectin and they tried to burn him for it. This was his big moment of being a truther. Them trying to persecute Joe Rogan because of things that he said, and he brought Kennedy on and all this stuff. RFK Jr., he did all the things with the vax. And he, all the stuff that he was proposing for his COVID. And that was his big thing. And Donald Trump did Operation Warp Speed, which caused the whole fucking problem. Which is a rush job where they didn't do testing on the vax that was, should have been mandatory. Even Bill Gates said it, that, Donald Trump rolled it out in 2020, and by 2021 it was being kind of mandated. And Bill Gates said that was ambitious and probably it would be best by 2022. Even Bill Gates, the biggest shill for the vax, thought that Trump rushed it too much, right? And that caused a problem. By 2022, COVID was done. And so all these people who, got the vax and got boosters and, are suffering, whatever, is really, and Donald Trump calling himself the father of the vax. And so, I'm not going to play my compilation, but you guys seen it. And he's bragging about it. And so Joe Rogan and him should be opposed on Joe Rogan's signature truther moment, where he said the vax stuff. And so, like, it's just obvious that Trump was their asset. He got worked on COVID, and he closed down the economy, and then he got worked on the election, and then he did January 6th. He walked into that trap. And I don't think he's that good of an actor. I think he's just dopey enough that they work him, and he does the things they want him to do. Like, he's their perfect asset because they don't give him orders. They just use the simplest reverse psychology on Trump and pressure him to do the things that they want him to do, which right now is to take down the economic system and all the other things. Start World War III, right? Like, he's walking like right into it. He's the perfect fucking patsy. Just like that guy in the roof in his fake fucking thing, right? He's a patsy. He's a perfect fucking patsy. And so, so Joe Rogan says that thing, like he's just crazy enough, like he's been persecuted. And what I said was that when Trump ends up in jail or he doesn't win the election, come talk to me about all the court cases, all that. So there's a 3.5 year period where Trump is convicted and sued, all the ways that he was being so-called persecuted in the media. And I said, when I see Trump behind bars, when I see him in fucking handcuffs, when I see him losing the next presidential election, because here's their biggest asset. It was clear that they talked about Donald Trump more on the MSNBC and CNN than they did on Fox and those other QAN and those other whatever it is. The thing that Cuomo's is on, those other smaller network TV news channels. Donald Trump was the center of the political universe and really everything. Celebrities talk about him all the time. I mean, we lived in a world that people talked about Trump probably 99% more than they talked about God. Right? There's more content about Trump than there is about God. There's more content about Trump than there is about a celebrity or a politician now for the past 10 years. And whatever it was, it was 8 years, 9 years. They didn't talk about Trump, Biden. They talked about Biden 1/10 as much as they talked about Trump. And so if Trump was the focus of everything, his time wasn't done. So they were going to make him president again. And I said that. Like, you guys can go back to my videos. I said it over and over again. Like, why wouldn't they? Like, I couldn't imagine they were going to get rid of this asset. What is MSNBC or CNN going to talk about if Donald Trump isn't there? What are the Democrats going to talk about if there's no Trump? They're not going to talk about how great Biden is. They're not going to talk about how great Kamala Harris is. And so if he's an asset of theirs, if he's not, if they're trying, they'll kill him or they'll get rid of him. And they could have put him in jail because he's committed crimes. He's a fucking criminal. He does illegal shit all the time. And he skirts the law, and they don't even need him to do that. They can put anybody in jail anytime they want. They can fucking manufacture bullshit. And they, just like all these things that they, he has these felony charges against them, 32 counts. Whatever happened to that? And then the Supreme Court rules in his favor. And then he's going into this thing. And then there's the fake shooting. And I'm like, fucking, they're making him president again. Like, everyone saw after this fake shooting, Trump was going to be president. And everyone just went fucking along with it, right? Including this fucking guy right here. So then then Joe Rogan's like, he's just crazy. And they need a crazy person. He has to be crazy. Fucking, if he's not crazy, a good person would fall apart after all the persecution, the indictments, and the lawsuits and all those things. But he's just fucking crazy. Trump's just crazy. He's the only guy who can fucking do it because he's crazy. He might suck really bad, but a good person couldn't survive what they put him through because he's going to fucking redeem the system. And like, how the fuck are you watching this thing? I mean, like, just, he's either a shill, which, I mean, he's a hype man, Joe Rogan. Like, he hypes people up, not as bad as Jimmy Fallon, but he hypes the WWE up. And he sold himself, like, in terms of, that Fear Factor show was ridiculous. He's willing to cross the line for success, right? All these people are. They're willing to do things and chill for things that they know are wrong. And so either he's just fucking lying to his audience, and he's got the biggest audience for, a podcast. He's the number one podcaster, and he's lying to all these angry young men. They're listening to him, disenfranchised young men, right? and, you know, the kind of people that are susceptible to Trump's bullshit. And so he's either just flat out lying them, or he has no ability to see what's going on. Like he's, you know, like he's just sucks, right? Like to have that take. And so then he says this here.
Fucking insane person to ride that out and not look like anything even happened, then you get shot.
Then you get shot? Look at his eyes. And you get shot? Like he had visual evidence of, let me go find that video clip, where he says, you know, there's no scar in his ear.
Do you even have a scar on your ear? You got anything on there?
I do.
So look, there's the fucking bandage. Right? This is a fucking maxi pad.
Got anything on there?
I do.
What do we say? What do you got
So, right over here.
Where there's nothing there. Fucking there's nothing there. He doesn't have a scar because he didn't have a cut. Because he wasn't shot. Because the thing was fake. And they put ketchup on his fucking ear. You know. Fake blood. But ketchup sounds funny.
It's a tiny little
See,
mark.
There's no, it's zicked me. It's zicked him right there.
Zicked right there.
Yeah.
It's zicked him. Look, right there. Boom. Zicked. Like fucking. it's zicked him. So I showed you where the guy, the shooter was over here, right? The shooter's over here. And for it to hit his ear, see, this is a great picture. This is whoever did this video. So for him for the bullet to just nick his ear, right? It's possible that this could happen, but you know, the heat of the bullet would probably cauterize the ear. But it only could happen if Trump was looking at, and I showed this in many of my videos, Trump would have to be looking directly at the shooter at such an angle where the bullet wasn't going to hit the front of his head here or the back of his head here, right? Which is, you know, the ear sticks out a little bit. And so he has to be perpendicular to the shooter. And the shooter's actually way over here. So Trump would have had to be looking at the shooter over here, and he was looking over here. So the bullet would have had to go through his head to hit his ear, right? Like it would have to be the perfect shot to nick his ear, right? Like if they were just trying to nick his ear. And Trump was moving around all over the place, right? So, you know, like Trump saying it's a miracle because he was looking at the sign. He had a chart, remember, that was talking about immigration. And Trump looked at the immigration chart, and the guy would have had to be on the immigration chart because he's looking directly at it, right? But, you know, there would have been something more in terms of hitting his ear. So he's saying it nicked his ear here. It zicked my ear.
Zicked right there.
Yeah. It healed up pretty good.
Well, it's pretty good, yeah. It's not like some of the UFC fighters.
So, you know, like then Trump tries to say, so the thing was not bleeding when Trump got up. There was no blood gushing from a part of his ear. You couldn't tell, you know, where the wound, the fake wound was. Like, you know, he's pointing to that part of his ear. You know, he zicked me. Really zicked me.
Some of the UFC fighters.
No.
But it makes me a tougher guy.
Do you even have a
Makes
scar?
me a tougher guy, right? No, it's because that's this thing. So Joe Rogan saw there's no fucking wound. So that should be like, well, maybe this is performance. Trump, he knows that Trump's part of the WWE. The thing was such a WWE thing. And, you know, Trump, then why did you have a bandage on? Well, I just wanted to make everybody remember that I got shot in the ear when the fight thing. You know, what Kamala Harris's was, when we fight, we win. And that was bullshit because she lost, right? Like, that was just bullshit saying. Donald Trump's thing was, when we fight, it was fight, right? And so they both wanted to be seen as fighters. And neither one of them really is, right? And so Donald Trump, you know, Joe Rogan's trying to say that they tried to take this guy down, and they couldn't do it. Well, they could do it anytime they want. Like, you guys all know what they did with COVID. You know how they fucking went after you, right, with COVID and ivermectin. You saw all the bullshit that the government's been able to do in the media and, you know, the courts. They couldn't take Trump down. Of course they could. The guy does, I mean, they had all these ways to take him down. He was highly unpopular. He was, 52% would say I would never vote for Trump. And, you know, Trump has people who love him. That's a minority. It's capped off at 40%. There's 40% of potential voters really love Trump. It's really 30-something, 35, 32, that are Trump lovers, like Trump fans. And then there's 40% would be the highest, people who are positive about Trump. You can't win general election you can't win a presidential election with 40%. When the other 60% is like, this guy's a fucking doofus. So there was 10% that saw Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as deeply flawed and were worried, they thought maybe Trump would do a better job with the economy. And that easily could have been swayed. So they could have made sure Trump didn't get elected again. They rig it. All they had to do is rig the fucking voting machines. I mean, we talked about how much it was rigged with Joe Biden. Everybody was saying that they rigged the election. Why didn't they do it again, right? For Kamala Harris. Like, Trump didn't win by such a big margin. He barely won all those swing states. And so it's easily could have been that Trump was, taken out. And yet Joe Rogan persists with this bullshit, right?
Happen, then you get shot.
Yeah.
You get up after you got shot, you're fucking bleeding from your ear, and you go fight, fight, fight.
He's crazy. That's fucking crazy, right? And, that was fake. He was mouthing the words when he said fight, fight, fight. So let me show you that. So let's remember how fake this was, right? Remember Trump pointed out this guy directly behind Trump who was looking around, right?
Comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look.
So, see again, this is where the shooter's over here, somewhere, up high, but over here. The angle of the bullet's going to go this way, so it would have to go through Trump's face to get to his ear.
Look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country, and then the worst.
So remember, the shooter has been up in the roof for 10 minutes. The counter snipers, the governmental, the snipers for the Secret Service, have the guy in his sights. He was walking around the venue with a rangefinder. He's up on the roof. They can see he has a rifle. There's people who are seeing him up on the roof, and he shoots at one of them before shooting at Trump. So this is a young kid's never killed anybody before. There was never any really information about the kid, right? His story disappeared, and they know about the guy. The snipers can take him out for 8 minutes, and there are cops coming up on the side of the roof because people notice there's a guy on the roof, and it's a complete breakdown at Secret Service, right?
President in the history of our country took over, and look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see
Joe Biden, you're fired.
Take a look at what happened.
Okay, so there was it, right? So he's looking at the chart. You can see right there.
Take a look at what happened.
So the shooter's over here. So there's no way the bullet could hit his ear, graze his ear. It would went through his head. Boom. So he looks down, and he looks at his hand, and he said there was tons of blood, and there wasn't. So look at this guy, right? And all these people. Now where he talks about all these people not crouching down when there's bullets flying, and not running from the stage and panicking. So then Secret Service gets on top of him. This guy's looking around, and Trump talked about him. Looking around for the shooter.
Moving his bear. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move.
So he says, let me get my shoes on.
Move. Go. Hawkeye's here. We ready?
Okay, we are watching live at a rally
So you can hear him, right?
in Butler, Pennsylvania, where former President Trump was speaking on the stage. There has been some kind of disturbance that clearly sets law enforcement and Secret Service into motion, immediately jumping around the former president in a protected
So, what do you mean? Did you not hear the shots?
Mode. The crowd has been screaming. They are standing by.
So he gets up. There's no blood. The blood's dry when you see the pictures. I
You
showed
can
this.
hear some voices there saying, "Are we ready to go? Are we ready to go?" We are looking at President Trump. This does not look good. I'm going to be honest with you. From what we can see right here, it looks.
So then he raised his fist, right? This is what Joe Rogan said. This guy's crazy. He's fucking crazy.
Looks like they are attempting to move him out, that he may have been injured.
So he's mouthing the words. Like you could hear him. You could hear them talking, the Secret Service. He's mouthing the words. He's not saying fight. He's pushing his hands up and saying fight because he's been in WWE things with the McMahon family. He made Linda McMahon the president of the secretary in charge of education. She's donated so much money. I showed you all the WWE stuff that he's done. You know, him and McMahon getting into fights and, you know, the fake stuff. And he's trying to go for it here. Fight, 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 right?
Injured.
Fight, fight.
He is holding up his arm. He is pumping his fist, but clearly Secret Service wants
So there's no blood gushing. The blood's dry. The fake blood's already dry.
to get him out of this situation.
And, you know, they would have to... He didn't put the blood on themselves. Like, you know, they all have to be a part of it, right? Every one of these guys, they all look like fake. Now his head is exposed here. They would never let that happen, right? They would never let... Because they don't know if there's other shooters in the crowd. What if there's multiple shooters? Like, they always have to consider that. Like, it's the first thing. And so, even Morning Joe said the Secret Service was an epic failure. Trump's going to praise these guys, but they left him vulnerable here, and then this whole walk to the car, where they would have cleared the crowd out. They would have kept him on the ground, get everyone out of there, right? Get everyone, you know, and then escort him to the hospital. Because, again, they could look at him and say, okay, he's got ketchup on his ear. He's not really bleeding. He's not shot. We don't need to rush him out of here.
Situation.
He's doing that thing, right? The whole fight, fight, fight thing. Okay, so that's the Fox News one. And I think they went back and edited and cut some of it out, the end part. So here's the one with Forbes. Forbes just starts with the shooting. They stay on the ground. He gets up, right? Now this guy's shielding him with his hand. And then Trump, they put his hand up. You don't let, you know, there's all this fight, fight, fight stuff, right? He's yelling at fake fight, fight, fight. Mouthing the words. Like he did when I showed you that thing where he supports Eminem for president in an MTV bullshit thing. And again, like, no way they let him do this, right? They're manhandling him, getting him out of there. He loses control over his own body. And now he's down another shot. Like, if the camera could see his head, then you can see his head from multiple angles. The guy puts his hand over his head, you know, which would be like, all right, let's just shoot through that guy's hand. If somebody throwing up the devil's horns, like Trump's rocking it. But this is the kicker right here. So they got the guy to the car. You still another headshot. I mean, there's multiple angles that the shooter would have access to him, a second shooter. But then they let him get up on the thing and position his head. He's got his arm up because they wanted to have a WWE moment. Secret Service was completely compromised. And Trump hasn't said one word about how they failed on every level. This is a failure. Like, they could have shot the guy with 8 minutes, and Trump even said they could have shot him, but, you know, he made some kind of bullshit excuse for them not shooting him. The snipers that were working for the Secret Service. I mean, it was a breakdown. They fired the woman who was in charge of the Secret Service. But these were, you know, it was fake. Like, they were all involved in this hoax, which is, like, disturbing. And then he goes to the hospital, where multiple reports about him being in the hospital, and this guy saying, giving the finger and saying, fuck you to the media. Again, these people here, like, they're all like staged, like this guy, this woman here, yelling at the media, fuck you, you guys did this, yelling at the media, right? And all these people here, when Trump's going to the car, if there's a second shooter, they could also be caught with some stray bullets, right? Goes to the hospital. They find out the thing's already, you know, there's no scar, there's no cut. They go to the hospital, no stitches. And then he puts on this fucking maxi pad.
Gentlemen, please welcome the next president of the United States.
So look, he comes out like this is his moment, right?
Donald J. Trump.
He gets to do this walk. Thank my lucky stars.
The flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away.
The flag still stands for freedom. You know, another song about another bullshit fake event that every truther knows was staged and fake, and that bullshit song about patriotism. You know, false flag thing. I'm glad to be American. At least I know I'm free. When George W. Bush came out and said that, you know, go shopping, right? That was it. Freedom is consumerism. It's not. When they say they hate our freedoms, they hate your consumerism, where we're eating their resources, right? Fight, fight, fight. See, he's doing the thing. Fight, fight, fight. So a guy who, you know, again, this shooting happened like on Saturday, and this is Thursday, so it's been a number of days, and he's got this fucking maxi pad on his ear. He already showed Joe Rogan there was nicked up here, and they came out and did this interview where it was. So here's the bandage. This is, I think, a week after the convention. The convention ended on whatever it was. And so this is like 13 days maybe after the shooting. It was like 12 or 13 days. You know, I say it in my old videos about this. And so it's, why does he need a bandage when you need 13 days to heal a nick? But he couldn't come out and show his ear. Like it was fucking, there was no cut like we saw in Joe Rogan. They're covering up the lack of a cut, right? This is to make you see, not, you know, like, you know, no stitches, no anything, blood dry, nothing, right? Nothing, no evidence, no scar. And Joe Rogan said there's no scar. And so this was to, you know, he wore this for like 13 days and they just took it off, and they weren't even talking about the assassination anymore by then.
You know, it would have happened. It didn't happen. And President Putin would have never done it. Never was going to get out. I would have been out sooner, but they're not woke. No. Because I have generals in there that are great, not the ones on.
I can hit back hard. That's the way you stay. We have Americans, not
electricity as we currently have in our country for AI. It ruins everything, and it's a 6% of the things we've talked about that want them. People that don't off the electric car thing, because I think electric cars are fantastic. For Zelensky called me, and we had a good talk, and I said we got to get this war over.
All right, so whatever they addressed the thing, but I mean, you know, it was a joke. It's a lie. It's fake as fuck. It's fake as fuck. Like it's ridiculously fake, right?
Fight, fight, fight. You gotta be a crazy person to get through.
You gotta be a crazy person. You gotta be a fucking crazy person to get through that. Only a crazy person would survive a fake fucking WWE, fake assassination, fake court cases, fake fucking lawsuits, fake everything that he had to endure. There's those 3.5 years after rolling out Operation Warp Speed and getting worked by the fucking the powers that be on COVID, and then losing the election, then doing January 6th, and then all the shit that went with it, and the media talking about it being horrible all the time, and him developing his own true social thing that he made billions of dollars on, and then the crypto shit. We'll get into the crypto stuff again with JD Vance coming up. That's a fucking another piece of this.
He's a nightmare for anybody that's trying to rig a system. Like
anybody trying to rig a system, he's a nightmare because he's not going to let him rig a system. It's a nightmare for that. He's a nightmare for the people trying to rig a system. Those are fucking elites trying to rig a system, right? He's a fucking nightmare for those fucking guys, right?
That guy's the nightmare. He's the final boss of fuck you. Right.
He's the final boss of fuck you. Look at him. Like he's pumping this guy up here, right? So then the guy he's interviewing, who seems to be like just supporting Joe Rogan's worldview in the interview, says, yeah, a good guy wouldn't want that, because that's what Joe Rogan's kind of saying, that Trump's a kind of an asshole, but he's the elite's worst nightmare because you need a guy like that to take down this rigged system in the elite. And Trump is the ultimate guy who rigs the system for himself, right? And so Joe Rogan goes, yeah, a good guy wouldn't want that, but I don't think Trump's a bad guy. He's just a guy who wants public success. He wants success, and he wants it in a way that's public. And I go, yeah, narcissist. I mean, there's lots of people who want to be shadow successful, which is the smart people. The people like Trump who are in the shadows, who are really calling the shots, they don't get any of the bullshit that Trump gets. So all the stuff that Joe Rogan said about Trump being persecuted, Trump loves attention. There's people who will say, I don't care what they're saying about me as long as they're talking about me. And that's Trump. Trump loves attention more than anybody else. And that's why he ran for president in the first place, to get attention. I don't think he really wanted to win. I mean, everybody has their mixed feelings about anything. Any job you get, like, it's not 100%, oh, I want that. I guess sometimes there is that. But, Trump was clearly divided between actually being president, and he did it as a publicity stunt, and it took off. Like, nobody took him seriously, and Trump was acting like not a serious candidate. He didn't know anything about politics. And he said when he got in there in his Joe Rogan interview, he knew nothing about politics. And he was just fucking completely out of his depth his first term, and was just having people handle him and tell him what to do. That's why he nominated all those people that turned on him for these positions. In his second term, he learned his lesson. Now he's got all these cult following Trumpers, right? And so, the thing with Joe Rogan is that he's got an audience of fairly loyal people that look to him as that's younger men, mostly, that are angry and lost and see the world, no future for themselves, and the way they're being demonized. There's that group, the incels, these people. And Joe Rogan has a portion of that group. And, he is a hype man for WWE, for USC and all that stuff. He's a hype man. There's a lot of that stuff fake with that too, right? The outcomes can often be rigged. I mean, they obviously really fight because you can see them hitting each other. But, the way that fight game works is a lot of it's about promotion and selling the fight. And so it's a lot of bullshit and fake stuff they do to do that, right? Like, so to sell a fight or to sell a WWE event, there has to be fake, there has to be bad blood and fake, rivals. I mean, some of these guys hang out and they're friends, they're coworkers, especially WWE, and they don't really hate each other. Like Conor McGregor was great at making it seem like he hated these guys that he's fighting, and they would talk shit. And that whole thing that happened, you see it with Jake Paul, like he goes overboard with that, where they want to make it seem like these guys hate each other, and they just really want to beat the shit out of each other, right? Which sometimes that happens, but almost never. And so that's all fake. Like all that stuff, WWE, and the guy who, whatever his name is, the guy who's in charge of the WWE and in charge of USC, gave that speech to introduce Trump, right? And he's the reason that Trump went on, that Joe Rogan went and interviewed Trump, Dana White. And so Dana White was going to buy the WWE. There's going to be a point where it was going to be purchased by him, right? And in fact, I think they own some of that now. I think that's part of it. Like they're part of that whole hype thing. And he rolled out Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock at his convention. That's all hype shit. That's all, and Joe Rogan's completely okay with that because that's what he does. And, he's completely okay with Trump faking a assassination attempt, which is a fucked up thing to fake, right? And we all know, like, it's disappeared. Trump never talks about it. They still hawk some of that merch, but deep down, everyone kind of knows it was fake. And if they admit that's fake, that's why the Democrats don't cover it as fake. Then they say, well, if they fake that, then they faked everything. Once you see that they're faking shit all the time, which they are, and if it isn't faked, they embellish. They change the narrative. If it is organic, they twist the news story to fit their agenda. And so they like fake better than organic, because fake, you control the victim consciousness, which is what all these things are about. If you want to rally people, there has to be a victim, and there has to be an element of fighting. And so you want to rally your country to go fight a war, then you pull off a false flag, right? You be some bullshit event. So, there's got to be a victim, right? There's like victim consciousness. And, false flags have been done probably every war. Every war that involves a country that doesn't want to fight to a country that wants to invade them and take their land, an occupying country. There has to be some kind of false flag thing, because the small country, the weaker country that doesn't want a war because they know they're going to get their ass kicked, isn't going to do anything to provoke a war. And so if you're not going to come out and just say, hey, we're invaders, in that Viking show, the Vikings, oh, we got to go loot, we got to go conquer. Like there wasn't any sense of them being victimized. They were just going out and beating the shit out of people. They were bigger and stronger, had better fighting techniques. And they were really into fighting. It was part of their culture. And so, you either have to be like that, and no one can be like that now in modern days. Everyone's got to be a good guy. You got to frame the narrative. So they just make up this shit to go into these, situations. So there's all that fake stuff that happens. And so much is faked. And, with TV and the book Propaganda that came out in the 30s and everything that book predicted, and now, of course, with the internet and all the rest of it, it's to motivate people. There's a lot of stuff is about moving people in the right direction for the story. And Joe Rogan's moving, it's when you treat your audience like sheep. There's the saying, don't throw pearls before swine. But in the Sajmark system, everyone gets the same transmission. Everyone on day one gets the same stuff that everyone else is getting. There's no sense of some secret group and, some group who gets more. If you're closer to the you do more work, you're going to get more. But, everyone gets the same. Everyone does the same practice. There's no hierarchy in terms of, preceptors and things. And so, there's throwing pearls before swine. But the opposite is throwing bullshit to sheep, or being a Judas goat and leading sheep to slaughter. It's when you treat your audience like they're sheep. Like you have no respect for them. Like I have a standard for my audience here. I expect people to be of a higher level in their consciousness. Not some remedial dumbass motherfuckers who just say stupid shit, John 3:16 or some fucking biblical quote that has nothing to do with the fucking video. Just repeating things that they've been indoctrinated with. Like I don't want that bullshit here, right? There's lots of content for dumb motherfuckers, which does really well and is supported by the beast. This isn't for that, right? Like I expect my audience, I expect a standard in terms of the comments and questions and things that you raise, that it's just not dumbass fucking remedial shit for beginners and fucking morons, right? Like I want, I know that everyone can do better. Like I was a lazy piece of shit slacker, and when I was introduced to doing Sajmark meditation, it helped to elevate my abilities and my, everything, consciousness. And I know if I could do that, then anyone else can. Like it's a matter of effort, a matter of focus, a matter of, I don't want to say desire, but, intent to want to, improve in a way that divinity is a part of. That you have a soul and you have the divinity within you. And by cultivating that relationship with God and your soul and cultivating your heart as an instrument to understand and make decisions with, purifying it, your heart can't be, like a heart can also be contaminated, right? There has to be a cleaning and a purification process so that you can properly utilize your heart. But your heart tells you what God and your soul want you to do. And so, like, that's what I expect. Like, the people who come here, like, they're on the path towards something like that. A level of consciousness that is, I don't pander to dumbasses, right? And so I don't treat you guys like sheep because I don't want sheep. The Sajmark system, they said, the original master of the Sajmark system said, we want lions and not sheep. We permit sheep. We permit sheep out of etiquette. We allow sheep to be here. We allow sheep to fucking, be a part of something that they can't understand and can't elevate themselves to to be a part of, because it's just wrong to, you know, they're not going to be mean to sheep, like I might be. They're going to, but there's the idea that lions are there, right? The second master of the system said, you have to have the spirit of the Spartans in your spiritual approach. Either you come back with the shield or on the shield, but spiritually, not, as a warrior, but in a spiritual warrior, right? So, and that's the problem with all these motherfuckers, because they disrespect their audience. They want people who are dumb and, will buy their fucking merch and follow them into the, over the cliff, right? So speaking of which, this is the other piece to this. So this motherfucker shows up at a crypto conference and does this.
Now, you guys know I get to meet a lot of exciting people in my job, but it's been quite a while since I've been to a conference with this level of energy. I mean, hell, you guys came out here at 9 a.m. after a long night, I'm sure.
Hell? What are you talking about, hell, bro?
Las Vegas. You can't do that without a lot of good energy. But I promise I'm not just saying that to juice my own meme coins.
Fuck, right? He just said that shit. Juice his own meme coins. He's doing a lot of juicing. He likes to juice. Fucking. So crypto, like, think about, this is what I was saying about Elon Musk. Elon Musk wants to chip you, Neuralink, and there's some, they're having some success with perhaps helping people who are paralyzed, so there would be some value to that, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to say there is or isn't. Putting these chips in people's bodies. Like, if you were paralyzed, you'd certainly be pretty happy to be able to walk because of some technology. So that's, that is whatever it is, right? But we all know about the chipping. Like, everyone who's been around the truth community knows that was one of the original things that was talked about in the 90s and 2000s. And Elon Musk is pushing it. Everyone knows about getting rid of currency, cash. They're already getting rid of the penny and changing everything to digital, which they can just shut you off, right? There's a guy, Aaron Russo, who directed Trading Places and some other movie. And he was friends with the Rockefellers, and he made this truther video. You can find it, Aaron Russo's, whatever it is. It's a little dated, but he had access to the so-called elite, Rockefeller. And he said they'll just turn your shit off. You'll just, which is something that went around everyone knew about that anyway. If everything is digital, they can say, all right, you're fucked. You're out of the system, and just turn your ability, strip you of all your, Bitcoin money can be just disappeared, like any kind of digital money, and so it can say, it doesn't have value anymore. Sorry, or you don't have value. You can't do it. And all of a sudden, your chip or your palm print or your eyes, like in that movie with Tom Cruise, forget the name of it, doesn't matter. The one with the people that did the pre-crime. Don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. I could look it up. The pre-crime movie, where he had to change his eyes out because everywhere he went, they were identifying him and tracking him, right? Because of his eyes. They had these ads that would, they would target you because of your irises. And they'd say, hey, Tom, want to come here and buy this, right? And so they would be able to track you just because they're reading your retinas. So he had his eyes. Minority Report is the name of the Minority Report, because there was two of these precogs, these psychics, and two of them gave one report, and then there was sometimes one of them would give a different report. So they were able to predict the future, but then it wasn't 100% accurate, right? But all those things, this was, I forget what I started off with this thing, but, this guy comes out and he's shilling for crypto. And it's the ultimate, Trump doing the same thing. They all have meme coins. And so it's a way for them to get financially compensated through crypto. And, crypto, this idea, this is what I said, there was going to be the lack of cash. And cash is bad enough as it is because it's make-believe. but then, they can just shut you off and do all those things that they, I said earlier. And now these guys are pushing it. They're pushing crypto, and you're like, well, crypto is kind of like it's whatever it is, like digital currency. It's had a bad reputation in the truth community, but a lot of people have got on board with Bitcoin and crypto in truth community too. And so it's kind of a weird thing. It's like it's like a fringe thing, but they're pushing the agenda, right? Without Trump, there was no gender, the gender stuff that was pushed. That was pushed because Trump was president, and the liberals were outraged, and anything that was anti-Trump and considered anti-Trump was being pushed through. And so during Trump's first term, what did they push through? Well, they pushed through that whole Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner thing. That was pushed through. Like, that was all on Trump. And then they pushed through the Operation Warp Speed, the COVID vax, and COVID, and shut down the economy, and which led to all these things, right? And then led to the Biden presidency, where there's all this aspect about that, right? We got one more thing to do with that, too, coming up about Trump's tweet. And so I said that when Trump was president, they pushed through so much of their liberal agenda, and they weren't able to do it as well when Biden was president. And when Trump craps out in 2 years, they're going to push all this stuff back. When Trump's popularity dims and, whatever happens with him, and they're going to push it again, right? So, and Trump's pushing some of it right now. He's pushing the chips. He's pushing AI like a motherfucker, right? Like, Trump is building whole power plants and everything for AI. So all that tech bullshit, all those tech fucking people, all those social media people, all those tech fuckers, all those transhumanists, Elon Musk's a transhumanist. I cover transhumanism quite a bit. And so they're all pushing it, and then they're getting rewarded through Bitcoin. They're completely bought and sold. All these people are buying their meme coin and compensating them financially, which breaks all these ethic laws. But they didn't have anything for Bitcoin, and they're doing it. They didn't have anything for crypto. So, him saying this.
But I promise I'm not just saying that to juice my own meme coins.
It's so bad.
But I think it's wrong, actually, to call this just a conference. This isn't a conference of...
Okay, so this is, again, all the things that truthers used to be against are being pushed through by these guys. And they're doing it in the idea that they're fighting against the New World Order deep state shit, right? The New World Order became the deep state, and these guys are fighting the deep state by doing all the things that the deep state wanted to do, right? And Trump is completely compromised. Joe Rogan's saying, he's just a guy who wants success and wants everyone to see him. Yeah, he's an attention whore, and he's completely compromised himself. He's got no morals and ethics, and he's all about himself. So how the fuck is he going to be somebody who takes on the elite? Like, Trump loves the elite. Trump is, he does everything for the elite. His new big beautiful bill is about rewarding the elite. He's also rewarding all these tech companies and doing all the things that they want to do, and rolling out all the things that were against, were consistent truther narratives. And Trump is just a guy to roll it out, because all these angry people that would be normally so-called patriots would be pushing back against these things are saying, well, Trump's got it. We can trust Trump, right? The same thing with Obama. Remember, Obama was the most war president and the worst president on whistleblowers and the worst human rights president, but everybody thought he was a liberal, pro-Muslim, everybody. The liberals stopped playing defense because they thought they trusted Obama, and Obama did all the things that, he was a war hawk and he did all those things, right, that were the opposite of liberalism, because everyone thought he was a liberal. Same thing with Trump. Trump does all these anti-conservative, anti-Republican things, but everyone thinks he's such a great American, and he says the shit about making America great again. And then he does these things that are oppositional to these long-standing Republican and truther ideals. And this is, how all this shit goes, right? Okay, so then I wanted to get to this.
Yamiche, one more thing to talk about. Over the weekend, we saw the president repost another baseless conspiracy theory on Truth Social. This time, it was about...
Baseless. It's a baseless conspiracy theory.
Former President Biden. And normally, we may not want to share such outlandish misinformation with our viewers, but...
Well, you don't want to share. You guys might believe it because you're dumb as fuck. I mean, it's so outlandish and so fucking ridiculous that we don't like to share it because you dumb fucks might believe in it because you're dumb fucks.
The president does have nearly 10 million followers on social media, so it's on True Social, so it's important to set the record straight. Tell us, what did he say this time, and what kind of pushback are we seeing?
And I'll echo your caution here because we don't usually repeat something that is so outlandish and baseless. But the president,
we don't repeat outlandish and baseless shit because who would want to do that? Because dumb fucks like you guys don't know the difference. If we repeat it, you're so fucking stupid. You might believe it, even though we tell you it's fake and it's outlandish and there's no basis for anything because you guys don't trust us because we're pieces of shit. So why would we repeat something when you're dumb fucks and we're lying pieces of shit so you might actually believe what Trump said? So otherwise, we would fucking totally post it.
The president reposted an online post without context, by the way. He didn't add any commentary to it, but the person that he reposted said that former President Biden had been executed and that he was actually replaced with clones and robots that were doing the job for him. Again, this is, of course, completely unfounded. President Biden has also been clear, not only is he dealing with sort of
the stupidest fucking shit. I'm going to show you the
challenges of being out of office, but there's also this idea that the president is also dealing with prostate cancer right now and going through treatment for that. So
I know, and he doesn't need baseless conspiracy theorists that talk about how he's a clone when a clone like that wouldn't be able to deal with prostate cancer. I mean, it's a clone. It's already a clone with prostate cancer. You don't need to say shit like that.
It's really not only a baseless claim, but also a claim that it's attacking someone who is going through a real...
he's such a victim. It's attacking some poor man with a fucking prostate the size of a fucking grapefruit full of cancer that's entered into his bones. And the guy has Parkinson's. You know, I mean, the guy's fucking... I mean, leave the guy alone, right? You don't have to say he's a clone as well.
Health crisis. We don't know why President Trump reposted this. The White House is declining to comment, but this is not, of course, the first time that he's reposted baseless claims. And
baseless conspiracy theories that we don't tell you guys. You're too fucking stupid to know the difference. We just say as much as we can and praise and saturate with a lot of context, telling you how baseless and fucking wrong it is.
Sure, it will not be the last, but President Trump has not been shy about spreading conspiracy theories in some ways.
Baseless conspiracy theories that you guys are too stupid to hear about. We don't even say it's like Voldemort, because if we say them, you guys will fucking, he'll appear and he'll abracadabra you guys.
It largely, in some ways, at least partly, if not largely, got him elected because a lot of his supporters do believe in the...
A lot of dumb fucks on his side. They're as dumb as you guys are, but they're just right-wing.
That he says, whether they're baseless or true. So just another, I think, a chapter of President Trump saying something that just is not true.
It's just totally fucking... Did I say it was baseless? It's fucking baseless. Okay, so here it is. His truth. And for you dumb fucks who would believe something as stupid as this, it's so fucking stupid. There is no Joe Biden. Executed in 2020. Biden clones, doubles, and robotic engineered soulless, mindless entities are what you see. Okay, so... they have MAGA and MAHA. Okay, so this moron who posted this and then Trump who reshared it. So, first of all, Joe Biden was the biggest sellout of all time. I mean, Trump is a distant second. Joe Biden was corrupt and a sellout. I mean, maybe not of all time, but in terms of modern politics, Joe Biden would do anything for attention and power. He was an attention whore just like Trump. He ran for president, lied about his background. He was in bed with all these corporate entities and, fucking military-industrial complex. There wouldn't be anything Joe Biden wouldn't do. And he reversed himself on things like gay marriage and all these other things. Like, he's old as fuck. So he had no ethics or opinions, for a guy who promoted gay marriage and things like that, LGBTQ stuff, when he was running for president. He was against it when it was a much more conservative country. Joe Biden ran in a fairly conservative state in Delaware with, traditional people there, the Pennsylvania bullshit he talks about. And he lied about everything, and he was a fucking groper and a fucking degenerate, and he would do anything his son was a fucking, a crackhead, and he pushed his other son into military service, and he ends up getting brain cancer, which Joe Biden said was because of the toxic waste that the guy said, for a political career. I mean, he didn't go into war because he wanted to go to war. He was going to be what Joe Biden hoped was the first Biden president. Beau Biden was going to be their golden boy, and Hunter Biden had to go to work and do scummy things. Had to sell his father's access to his father and do criminal things to pay for his brother's education and other things, campaigns and things. Like Hunter was the money winner, the breadwinner, and Beau was the golden boy. And so Joe Biden would do fucking anything, right? And you didn't need to clone him because he was going to offer no resistance. Plus, he had Parkinson's and he had prostate cancer. Why that was going on, and so there's no reason to clone him. Zero reason. And they made it like Joe Biden was the only one who could beat Trump, but they could have rigged it for anybody. They wanted Joe Biden because he was such a fucking sellout, and he was so fucking gone mentally that they could run their grifts through him. And he would just go along with it. He'd go along with it anyway, but now he couldn't even fucking, he didn't know what was going on in the room, right? And so the other thing is that I was one of the first people to talk about human cloning. And I did it in a responsible, non-dumb fuck way. And what I said was they were cloning humans because they were cloning rhesus monkeys, and they were cloning horses, and they were cloning dogs, and they were cloning pretty much every animal that human beings have some sort of shared genetic, genetics with. And so if they could clone those animals, they could clone humans. And it was admitted that they could clone humans. It was just illegal to do so. But the cloning of a human is this. They take some of your cells and they make an embryo out of it without a sperm. They have a way of doing it with they make it into an embryo and then plant it in a human being, a woman, or a uterus, and she has a baby clone. The normal way. It's just a clone. I mean, that's how they do it with animals. And so, that isn't what people think cloning is. People think that they clone people, accelerate it to grow fast within 3 months in an artificial womb, which they don't really have perfected yet, which they've been working on. Maybe they do. We don't know about it. And that they accelerate it, and then they stop it at age 70. Or 80, wherever Joe Biden was. And they got all these Joe Biden clones that are sitting there, and they are able to implant memories and things. But even if they were able to do that, the clone doesn't come out. You know all the milestones you have to reach as a baby? Like they can clone you as a baby, and then, maybe accelerate, clone you as like they could do a clone of you, and then, you ever see this movie called The Island? And then they could have it, give birth to clones of you. And then if you needed organ transplants, they could take the organs from it. But the clone still has to learn how to walk and talk and do all the things that baby, not shit in its diapers. I guess that wouldn't be important for Biden. They could leave that part of the training out. But it would be a baby 70-year-old. So it's stupid. It doesn't fucking work. It's just dumbass fucking right-wing shit that they think that they have this technology that they don't. They don't have the ability to clone somebody, accelerate the growth, implant memories, and that thing can come out and imitate you and think it's you. They don't have that ability. It just doesn't exist and probably will never exist because, you have to, even if you go into a coma, you have to go back and relearn how to walk and shit. If you're in a coma too long, then you learn all these abilities. You lose all these abilities. All the things that your body has learned to do, your muscle memory, that all disappears. So you have to be retrained. Trump, a longtime supporter of conspiracy theories, frequently shares posts from his supporters, including boasting QAnon beliefs on his other baseless, bizarre claims. But the Biden post share on Saturday was among the most outlandish claims the 78-year-old president has ever spread publicly, and popular social media accounts associated with QAnon and other conspiracy excitedly highlighted Trump's post on Sunday, claiming it is confirmation of their beliefs. And that's the other thing. Trump says just stupid shit, and it doesn't mean that he has any evidence to support it. And, maybe he does it as a joke or just to, throw the QBs a bone, which shows you what a piece of shit he is because the QBs suck, and they've hurt all of us. So Trump has hurt the truth community, as have the QBs, and this is, his truth social. Like all these people are supposed to be against the system and against the beast and, speaking truth to power, but they're really just fucking dopes, right, who are wrecking everything that we created. And so, they can't clone people, and why would you need to clone Joe Biden when he's the biggest sellout of all time? They can't do it. They physically can't do it, and they don't need to do it. But they just come up with bullshit like this, and they don't think it through, and you try to explain it to them, and they're just dumbasses. They're dumb fucks, right? That's why I don't want dumb fucks here. Like, it's just a stupid thing. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't, it's not important to the context of anything. Like Joe Biden, wouldn't the clone be better than Joe Biden? Wouldn't he be not shitting himself and doing all this stuff? They could have had a clone that didn't have Parkinson's and didn't have prostate cancer, that could have been healthy and maybe could have won a second term. Why would they have a clone that melted down? Wouldn't they replace it with another clone that wasn't melting down in the debates and shit? Like, so, which they don't have the technology to do in the first fucking place. This is the bullshit stuff that's wrecked the truth community, right? And Trump is a fucking, is one of the key members of degrading the truth community into such stupid shit. So I was going to get to Israel, right? Because a lot of videos are coming out. I covered that yesterday a little bit. And I want to get to the Ukrainians bombing, droning Russian bomber planes. And I'll do that tomorrow, because that's escalating World War III. But this has been sitting up on my toolbar for a while. I just want to wrap these things up here.
Acuity of a recent president, it does seem a little weird to be focusing exclusively on the last one, and also include the one who blasted out this typically truly insane all-cap social media screed yesterday. Happy Memorial Day to all. Okay, weird way to start.
Let me read it. Oh,
including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds.
See, he does these these holiday posts. Like, why can't you just say Happy Memorial Day to the troops? Not to include
who allowed 21 million people to illegally enter our country, many of them being criminals and the mentally insane, through an open border policy that only an incompetent president would approve. And on and on and on.
And through judges who are a mission to keep murderers, drug dealers, rapists, gang members, and release prisoners from all over the world in our country so they can rob, murder, and rape again. All protected by these U.S.-hating judges who suffer from ideology that is sick and very dangerous for our country. Hopefully, the United States Supreme Court and other good and compassionate judges throughout the land will save us from the decisions of the monsters who want our country to go to hell. But fear not, we have made great progress from our last 4 months, and America will soon be safe and great again. Again, happy Memorial Day, and God bless America. So Memorial Day is to celebrate veterans, and Trump is supposed to be a big veteran guy. But this is somebody comes to your wedding or comes to your birthday party and says, hey, happy birthday. Did I tell you about my fucking C-word wife, my ex-wife, who's, it just goes into a rant about his ex-wife, or did I tell about my shitty boss? Happy birthday. My boss sucks, and my wife's a whore, and like fucking, this is about him. This is shit that Donald Trump is upset about because the judges are stopping him from doing shit, and so he goes on capital letters rant. He doesn't have any handlers would tell him this is not appropriate. You should be actually making this about the troops. But Trump always has to make it about him and what he's upset about. The guy fucking can't help himself. And, whether this guy's saying that Trump is breaking down mentally, Trump would have done this 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Like, this is what Trump does, right? Because he's a narcissist. He's got mental issues. This is not socially appropriate, right? It's funny, but the guy's your fucking president, and he's fucking running the country and the world into the ground because that's all he can do because he's a loser on top of it.
I'm like an old man ranting at the sky. Alexi McCammon is the host of the podcast In Sync with Alexi. Faz Shakir is a senior advisor, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Okay, we don't need to see these dopes. We get it, right? So Trump is clearly breaking down because he's getting older, but he's nowhere near as bad as Biden. And so if you had someone as bad as Biden, you can't fucking really call Trump out on it. Because Trump has always been fucking crazy and narcissistic and his own mental issues. And he is getting older, so it's worse. But, all of it, right? But Biden was shitting himself and could barely walk. I mean, Biden had Parkinson's and prostate cancer, and he was a clone. No, he's not a clone. So let me wrap this one up here. What I need to say about this too here is, the thing about, let's say they could potentially do all the things that they can't potentially do, and it's not even possible to do. I mean, think about the amount of science that would have to go into, not just science, but things that we're not even close to having the capability of doing, to accelerate genetics, to retrain a person like a clone when it's born at 70 years old as a baby, and then put all this, just because you were able to upload all of its consciousness, which is not possible, again, soulless, all these things. Like, I would think that a clone would have to have a soul, because just because something's genetically modified doesn't mean it needs a soul to animate it. Like when your soul leaves the body, it dies. So again, there's all these things that they're making claims it's soulless, a soulless clone. Well, it wouldn't survive. It couldn't be animated without a soul. And they're saying they're uploading their consciousness, which would involve a soul, which it's not capable of doing. Human science will never be able to recreate what a soul can create. And the soul creates the body. So without a soul, without the essence of life, it doesn't exist. So anyways, whatever that soul might be, I don't know what kind of soul would choose to be born in a clone, but you'd have to have a soul. But aside from all the bullshit, right, why would you need to talk about something like that when Joe Biden is in the state he's in, and he's had the presidencies he's had? And how does that help Trump and the country when Trump reposts something stupid like that, right? And how does it help us in the truth community when something that's so stupid, I want to end by saying this. What I was saying before is that I expect a certain amount of a level of consciousness from people that watch my videos, even if it hurts if I made content for dumb fucks, then my channel would do a lot better. Because there are a lot more dumb fucks who like dumbass content, and they'll watch shit because they're dumb fucks and they can't think for themselves. And so I'd be better off making content for dumb fucks than making content for people who are evolved in some way. But I can't do that. I don't talk to dumb fucks. Like, if I identify you as a dumb fuck, we all go through stages. There was times in my life where I was a dumb fuck, right? So I'm not like saying I'm talking down to people, but I have no tolerance for dumb fucks. And when I'm talking to a dumb fuck, I want the conversation to end as quickly as possible. I want to get away from the dumb fuck I'm talking to, right? And so, I say dumb fuck. And so that's what I mean by not making content for dumb fucks, right? And, there's no benefit to saying shit about like clones and President Biden, because, when you're talking to people who aren't going to get it, then I don't want to waste my time and my voice on those people, because they're not going to get it. When someone's not going to change, then why the fuck would I be talking to them? Why would I mean, we all have to change, and we all have to evolve. Most people have chosen to stop getting educated. They stop evolving. They stopped any progress in terms of their spiritual growth. And they just think they're a finished product. Everyone thinks they're a finished fucking product. And everyone else in the world, they know more than everyone else in the world, and everyone else has to change because they're fucking perfect. The majority of people, and Trump certainly feels that way, that's what they think. That's what they feel. And so, this is what I'm talking about. And so in all that, I don't make content for people like that because it's a waste of my time and energy. And I just hope that they move on. You have to be able to evolve in some way. There's have to be something I have to offer here that helps people move forward from where they are now and where they want to be in the future. Or at least where they, their soul wants them to be in the future. And so that's the content I make here. It's not for dumb fucks, right? And so, this pandering to stupid people and people who don't want to change, they just want to blame everything on the fucking deep state or the liberals or Trump or whatever. those people suck. Why are you expecting the most out of people that are the worst? People who are in politics, people who are running politicians, people who are hoarding billions of dollars of wealth, they are the worst of the worst. They're criminals, sociopathic type people, hoarders, selfish, disconnected from God, and you're waiting for them to change. Like I say this over and over again. Why would you wait for them to change? Like, you have to do better. Like, yeah, I can grade myself on a curve to the majority of dumb fucks and low-level people out there, but that's not the way that you evaluate your own success or your own existence. You evaluate it against the highest. You know, you find the highest developed souls. That's the problem with Christianity, because they say Jesus was born a certain way, like in a certain spiritual state, as God's only son, and you guys can never achieve it. So you don't work at it. Like if they changed it to what Jesus was originally, his original intent was that people did what he did, and that maybe surpassed him. I'm sure he wanted that, because every saint, every spiritual person wants everyone else to surpass them, because it's not a competition. It's not an ego thing. And so instead of worshiping Jesus, you work to become like him, right? You work to achieve what he achieved. I mean, that's the beauty of the Sajmark system. And so, this is the way it should be. But people just want somebody else to blame, and they don't want to change. And I don't want people like that here, because there's no, I wouldn't talk to people like that in real life, outside of this video, in human interaction. I wouldn't tell any of this stuff to them, because, it's like wasting time. It's like, unless I was off in my evaluation of them. But as soon as people start quoting mainstream media and bullshit talking points, I'm not going to talk to them. Like, I could tell them, because I know that people don't fucking listen. People don't fucking listen unless you're saying what they want to hear. And that's where my channel fucking is going to die a slow, miserable death. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. As Paul Romano definitely points to the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.